Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to USA Global TV and Radio. We're delighted to have you with us. And today's show is called Authentic Achievements. It's a show that I set up with the fabulous Dr. Jacqueline a number of years ago now, and it mirrors a platform of my own, also called Authentic Achievements. And today we were due to be joined by the fabulous Linda Fisk, but as life often does, some things don't always go according to plan. And so as we sit here right now, she is unfortunately not yet with us. And so because we're authentic, because we are going to just live life the way life needs to be lived, we decided we'd go with the show anyway. And I can start by sharing with you guys a little bit about what's been happening for us, for the show, and hopefully Linda can join us. But if not, I'm sure we can have fun just together for the next 40 minutes or so. And that kind of brought me to what's been happening the last few weeks. And I've been interviewing some fascinating people and really hearing about their lived experience, hearing about some of the challenges that they've overcome and some of the amazing opportunities that they have received as a result of changing their mindset. Almost unanimously from these people, the thing that they would go back and change is to believe in themselves more. And so it got me thinking about why we get in our way so much. Why do we spend so much time thinking about what we don't want? I work with clients all over the world, and one of the things that always fascinates me is very often they've got absolute clarity on what it is they don't want. They don't want the business to fail. They don't want to have a lack of sales. They don't want it to be unscalable. They don't want to have problems with their team, with their people, with recruiting, even down to personal goals. They don't want to look old. They don't want to be overweight. They don't want to be unhealthy. They don't want to be unfit. But all of these goals are set in the negative. They're set in the thing that we don't want to have happen. And yet very often when you ask them what they really do want, there isn't the same level of clarity. And so I thought that might be something interesting for us to talk about today, which is how clear are we about what it is that we want to achieve? And when we look at our goals, really critically look at our goals, are they written about what we absolutely want, or are they written about what we don't want? Because it may seem like a really small thing, but as we've talked about over shows in the past, our subconscious brain is the happiest little helper that we'll ever have, but it comes with a really significant flaw. It doesn't understand the difference between help and harm. So if you're telling it something you don't want, it doesn't understand you don't want it. And therefore, imagine your brain being like your car's sat-nav. Whatever you're telling it is where it's going to head. So if you're telling it something you don't want, you're going to see more and more of the things that you don't want coming in. And I see organizations do this on a global level. How many of you have heard of minimum standards? How many of you use that term in your organization? And then just think about it for a moment. Imagine the impact that has psychologically. So let's say I work in an organization where they have minimum standards. I work really hard. I do everything they expect me to do. And I get home at night and I get to say to my little girl, "Hey, Scarlett, guess what? Today, Mummy was absolutely minimum." really feel that great, does it? Not really going to, get me a sticker. She loves a sticker, or a high five. It doesn't set the right tone. Now, we do need to have standards and we need to adhere to them. But if we change the language that we use, so we take the same standards, but we call them standards of excellence, but we will not accept anything below our standards of excellence. Same day, same results. But when you get home, you get to go, hey, guess what? Today, mummy was absolutely excellent. Can you see the difference that would have in your psyche, in your psychology, and how you feel, and therefore how committed you are to go and do work the next day, do the same thing, keep that momentum going? And it all comes down to what we're committed to what we're focused on, to how we're being intentional. And I think for me, that's the thing that's really cropped up in the last couple of months, is the consistency that people have in keep going. And even if it doesn't feel like it's there yet, in keep doing the work and keep trying, but also in that clarity. Without the clarity of where you're going, why you're going there, what it's going to be like when you get there, it becomes significantly harder for you to achieve it. And not only does it become significantly harder for you to achieve it, it becomes significantly harder for your people to achieve it. Because if you can't be clear, how do you expect them to be clear? And so the people that I've interviewed have come from all walks of life, some of them running multi-million-pound businesses, some of them authors, some of them speakers, some of them have overcome real tragedies, some of them have achieved major success. But the thing that was true of all of them is the breakthrough came when they got clear, when they took that moment of pause and really thought about, what is it I do want? And be specific and really think about it. That thing that you really want, how's it going to make you feel? And what are you going to be seeing and hearing and thinking when you get there? Because the more colour that we can put onto that picture, the more likely we are to get there quickly. Because now our subconscious brain is being given more and more triggers of exactly what it is that we're looking to achieve. And the same is true if we're in an organisation. Once we've got really, really clear on where we're going and why we're going, the very next step is talking about it, communicating it, making sure everybody in the organisation also knows that they also know where we're going, and they know the part they have to play. And I was having one fascinating chat, and we were talking about how you bring your people along on the journey, how you get them motivated and inspired and driven into wanting to head in the direction that you're going. And he asked me, in my opinion, what's the best way of being able to do that? And I said, for me, one of the things that has been really clear over the last 30 years running businesses, leading teams, has been people want the permission to be part of the solution. And by that, what I mean is, we want to share with them where we're going, we want to share with them why it's important, and we want to give them permission to help us get there, so that they're not suddenly now just waiting for us to tell them every step that needs to happen, because they're actually empowered to be able to show us some of the steps that we can't see for ourselves. And therefore, collectively, we're now using the power of all of the brains in the organisation to enable us to anticipate obstacles and to overcome them, because we each see things from a slightly different angle. We talk about the fact that there's always three versions of the truth. There's your truth, my truth, and the actual truth. And the reason for that is because our emotional brain responds 24 times faster than our thinking brain. And so whenever something happens, our initial response will be what we've made it mean. We will have created an emotional link that attaches to that. And my emotional link could be very, very different to yours. So neither one of us is lying, but what we've made it mean is slightly different. And so being more curious about that, I'm curious about, why do I think this? I'm curious about, why do you think that? I'm curious about what can you see that maybe I can't see, opens us up to the whole spectrum of opportunities of things that are going on. And when we are brave enough to do that with our teams and our people, it's amazing how quickly obstacles that have been blocking us, blocking our success, and making us unable to move forward at the pace we wanted to, suddenly disappear. And they disappear purely because you've got that clarity of where you're going, and you've got the power of all of your people behind you heading in that same direction. And so for me, it really made me think about the fact that I do this for organizations, I do this for people all over the world and have done for years. But how often do I take my own medicine? I wonder if anybody listening or watching has ever heard themselves giving a piece of advice and going, good advice, that probably should take it. Well, I'm ashamed to say I found myself doing that quite a lot in the last couple of months, and having to then really sit down and take a moment of reflection to say, am I being clear with myself and with my team on what's really important? What are we really driving towards? How is it we want to best serve and add value to the people that we work with? And I realized that we hadn't been as clear as we needed to be, that we'd lost some of that clarity, that actually some of the goals that we'd set, we'd already achieved. But what we'd not done is celebrate that achievement, and we'd not set new goals in their place. So I suppose for me, when I think about September, it always, to me, feels a little bit like the start of a new year. And probably that's really honed in with the fact that I've got a little girl and it's the start of her new school year. But it feels like a really great moment to take a step back, to reflect, to have a look at how's the year gone so far? Are you where you expected to be? Whether that's in your business, whether that's in your leadership style, whether that's in your life. Are things going the way you expected? Has anything gone better than you expected? Has anything not gone to plan? And then use the time to do that reflection and then to refresh your focus to move forward. And so we have a show like this where we've had to think on our feet. You know, I could sit here and go, well, I can't really possibly do a show. I haven't got anything that we want to talk about. But it really made me think now would be a good time to take pause for anybody listening and watching to do the same as I'm doing, which is to take that time to reflect. Am I where I expected to be? If I am, great. Is where I'm going still where I want to go? And how am I going to feel when I get there? Is it really what I want? And sometimes we can convince ourselves that things are what we want them to do. But if I can indulge for a moment, I'll share one of my biggest ever career disasters. So I'd got a job I didn't enjoy, and I was really fed up of it. And I was looking for a new one. And I thought I knew what I wanted. And yet, and I don't know if this resonates with anybody, any job I looked at, I could convince myself was the one I really wanted. It was like, oh, that's me all over. This is right up my street. This is exactly what I want to do. And so in my typical go big or go home, I relocated 100 miles away from where I lived. I didn't know anybody. Bought a house. I mean, we've really go big or go home. So I bought a house, I up sticks, I moved in, and I was in that job for 3 months, 2 of which were my notice period. Because once I got there, I realized it just wasn't for me. It wasn't that it was a bad job. The people were lovely, but actually it didn't play to my strengths and it didn't bring me joy. And I really had to reflect on how had I made such a gigantic mistake. I now had a house in an area where I knew nobody. I needed to get a different job. I had such a short stint to put on my CV, which 20 odd years ago was a problem. People didn't like to see short stints in organizations. So I had really made a lot of mistakes in that one mistake that could have impacted me for a really long time. I ended up having got a job back with a previous company and spent the next 18 months commuting back the 100 miles to go to where I lived previously. And I found a way of making it work. But I also reflected on, why did I make such a big mistake? How did I get it so catastrophically wrong? And I realized that actually I hadn't been running towards my new job. I'd been running away from my previous job. And I guess that kind of links back to what we're talking about now, which is about having clarity of the goal. My goal had been to not have the job I was in, instead of to have my dream job. So I'd allowed a poor choice to now snowball into numerous choices that got added onto that, that then left me in a very, very different place. And I had to unpick all of those elements, eventually moving house and finding a job that did work for me, but really being conscious about, what is it I do want? Where is it that I do get joy? And one of the things that I learned back then, which if anyone's feeling that, they're a little bit stuck on how do you work out what brings you joy? How do you work out what your dream job is? Where do you even start? Then I was advised by my coach at the time that when you've got a little bit of time, you've got a little bit of freedom, and you're not stressed, take a moment, sit down somewhere with a piece of paper, and on one side of it, write down all the things you get to do, whether they're in work or out of work, that make you smile, that you enjoy doing, that you look forward to. And you put all of those down, whatever they are. And then you go back, and now you write down all the things that drain your energy, all the things that you dread, all the things that you put off. One of mine would definitely be filing. If you could see the state of my desk, you'd realize how bad I am at that, and it has never improved. But you kind of put down the things you don't like. So now you've got a list, things you like, things you don't like. You go back to the list and go, which of these, of the things I like, if I didn't get to do them daily, would make me sad, would make my life less happy. And then on the things you don't like, if these were part of my everyday life, which ones would make me really unhappy? Because we all have to do some things that we don't thoroughly enjoy, and we don't get to do absolutely everything we enjoy all of the time. But what it does is it helps us understand our outliers. So we know these things we absolutely need to have in our everyday. For me, one of them is people and talking to people, learning stories. If I don't get to do that every day, then it's not a good day for me. It's not a day that brings me joy. Whereas, as I've already shared, if filing had to be part of my everyday, it would not be a day of joy. It would not be a great life for me. So it helps us understand, and therefore we can start to reflect on the opportunities that might be available to us and make sure that they're now matching what we know on the inside is where we want, what brings us good energy and what doesn't take away our energy. So it helps us to start to filter through for ourselves the things that are important. But what the exercise also does is allows you to give real clarity to your subconscious brain on what you want more of. You can keep reminding it of all the great things on the things I love to-do list. This is what I want to do. I'd like to be able to do more of these. Where are there more opportunities for me to do this, for me to get involved in these kind of tasks or conversations, which helps you on that path to really working out where you want to end up, because it can be really hard. And one of the guests that I had this week was sharing that one of the things that stops us from getting started on where we want to go, and it broke down into three broad things. The first thing is the fear of the unknown. So if we don't know how to do a thing yet, then actually we can become very fearful of it. We can make the fear too great, and we don't know how to get started. So that becomes a reason to not start, to not even look at it. And the second thing was fear of failure. We fear that we're going to look a bit foolish, that we're going to say we're going to do something and then not be able to, or get it wrong, or fail. And so those two fears can hold us back from starting. And the third one was around wanting to stay where you are because you know what's there. It reminded me of one of those sayings that we grew up with, and I've shared before on shows. I think some of the sayings that were bandied around when I was growing up actually do you a lot of damage. And the one that sprung to mind when I was chatting to this lady was better the devil you know. I used to hear that all the time. It's better the devil you know, the grass isn't always greener. That almost driven to get you to stay where you are. So when we add that to the two fears, we can find ourselves in a place where you just can't move forward. And the lady I was talking to was the fabulous Cindy Corello, and she's written a book, and it's all about your next. And actually, when you realize all the decisions you make are just the next thing you're going to do, they're not necessarily going to be the last thing you ever do, unless you come up with something dreadful. But it's going to be one of the next. It's going to be the thing that allows you to progress and to see things differently. And because it's just a next, not a all-encompassing, overwhelming thing, it can help our brain actually overcome the fear and self-doubt that's holding us where we need to be, to make those changes. And I was really reflecting on it. It got me really thinking last night about how sometimes I almost catastrophize a decision. If I get this decision wrong, it's like the end of the world as we know it. And as one of my coaches said, it's like really is that moment where you've got to Velcro your hand to your head and woe is me, I'm such a victim. And I sometimes find myself doing that. I find myself in a place where I've made the decision that whatever I'm deciding on, whatever comes next, I've given it too much power. I've made it so big in my head that I then get myself stuck in analysis paralysis. I can't move forward because I'm too busy analyzing the hundreds and thousands of different scenarios my brain can come up with as to how it might not go the way I wanted it to. And so it really got me thinking, if I took away the severity of the importance that I gave it, so it's my next decision, and that doesn't mean to say I won't make it with care, and it doesn't mean I won't go and get some more information to enable me to know how to get started or to get the experience to be able to progress. But it means that actually I can understand for myself that there's likely to be another decision afterwards. There's going to be something else that I can get to. That make me change what I'm saying is really important to me right now, or really important for my business right now, or really important for my family right now. And I'd love to know people's thoughts, because for me, it's really helped. It's really helped in looking at that and saying, yeah, it doesn't mean I'm going to take it less seriously. It doesn't mean to say I'm not going to give the decisions in my life due care and attention, but I'm no longer going to make them such a catastrophizing impact that means that actually I don't make them. I don't make any changes. I don't adapt and evolve, because for me, I love to learn something new. I love to be able to keep developing, to understand new things, to learn different perspectives. It's one of the reasons that I love doing this show, both here on USA Global TV and Radio and also on my own platform, because I love hearing people's stories. I love people sharing their lived experience and how they've viewed something, how they've overcome an obstacle, how they've achieved something that they set out to achieve, how they broke the problem down, because that's how we grow. That's how I grow. That's how I learn new things, and I find that really interesting. And so for me, what I wanted to do in today's show was kind of almost use that as an opportunity to hopefully encourage people to take a moment. Because what's the worst that could happen? You take a moment and you pause and reflect, really reflect on, is the destination I've set myself the one I want to achieve? Or is there somewhere else I want to be? Is there something else I want to do? Because if you do that and you've got the right destination and you've got the right plan, great. You know you're on the right track. You've done the pause, you've done the reflect, you've done the review, and actually your refocus is to keep doing what you're doing, to keep going in that direction and to look for any ways to get there faster. But imagine if you do that pause, you do that taking a moment and stepping back and seeing how that aligns, whether or not you are genuinely on the right path and you find that you're not. Wouldn't it be better to know today and then be able to take the steps to gain that clarity? Say, actually, if this goal isn't that clear, or I'm not really that certain, or actually that's not really where I want to go, then taking the time now to step back, to really think about it, to ask yourself those questions about, what do you really want to achieve? What makes that really important to you? How's it going to feel when you get there? What steps can you see right now that could help you move in the direction of the destination that you want to get to? Really thinking about those and taking some time with them, brainstorming them with a friend, or maybe getting a coach or a mentor, or joining a mastermind group where you can collectively group think around those parts, really dig underneath the detail. There is an old theory, an old model that they used to use in coaching many years ago. It's called the 5 why model. And it's reminiscent of most people's toddlers. You ask a question like why, and then you answer that and it's like why. Oh, no, please make it stop. It's just because it is. But the theory was that actually the first thing that we say in response to a question is the thing we think is most likely to be accepted. So it's not necessarily the thing we really believe. It's the thing that we think is most likely to be accepted. And so once we keep asking underneath that, okay, so why is that so important? By the time we get to the 5th layer of why, that's going to be when we find out what's really important. So you'll see this if you're doing exit interviews with people. The first thing they always say is it's the pay. But actually the research shows that 57% of people leave their boss. So it's not the pay, it's the way they're being led. And research also shows, I think it was a Gallup poll, but it also shows that 64% of people, 64, would take a pay cut if they were given a different boss. So now it helps us understand that pay is important. Pay isn't a motivator, as people have often thought it is, but it is emotive. So if we get pay wrong, if we get reward wrong, then we're going to have a problem. But research also shows that when you get a pay rise or when you get a bonus, the positive impact on you lasts 3 days, just 3. Because within those 3 days, you've spent it. Even if you've not physically spent it, you've mentally spent it. You know where it's going to go. You've allocated it somewhere. And therefore, its level of impact on your overall motivation is now gone. And so what we've got to do is create the right environments for ourselves and for other people. So, but when you do those exit interviews, I guarantee pay will be the first thing they say. But once you dig underneath that and you get to the 5th layer and find out, so if pay was resolved, what else would make you want to leave? By the time you get to the bottom, you realize what the root cause is. It might be they don't like their boss. It might be they don't feel that there's career progression. It might be they don't feel that they're valued. But you can't find it by listening just to that first response. And the same is true when you're trying to really dig into getting personal clarity on where you want to take your business or your team or yourself, you've got to really question, and then question why you're so convinced that that's the right answer, until eventually you just know. It's like a feeling. You know that you are now on the right track. This is absolutely where you want to get to, because it makes you smile just saying it. It makes you feel happy and expectant. How are you going to, you want it to be now, a bit like a kid at Christmas. You want it to be today. You don't want it to be in the future. Once you get to that level of connection, then you know that this is the path that you need to be on. And that makes it so much easier then to start looking at how do you get there. And that, I guess, is one of the next challenges. Sometimes you can't see that. We want to see the entire picture before we take the next move. And yet, if life's taught me anything, it's that most of the time it's a little bit like doing a jigsaw puzzle without the box. You can't always see the picture that's going to be created. All you can do is put the pieces together that look like they fit. And so for me, when we're doing this kind of goal setting piece, the next thing, once you've got that absolute clarity, is to look at what step, no matter how small it is, no matter how seemingly insignificant, what step can I do today that will help head me in that direction? And if we each do that every single day, I guarantee that by the time we're doing the reflections at Christmas, you will be in a significantly different place than where you are right now. It's not about the massive change. It's not about the throwing everything out, ripping it up and starting again, but it's about the small things that we can do consistently and the actions that we take in the direction of our committed goal that makes all the difference. And from the people that I've had the pleasure of interviewing for the last couple of weeks, once they got there, once they got into that rhythm, into that role of they've got absolute clarity, and they were taking the sometimes seemingly insignificant steps, sometimes bigger steps in that direction, the speed of change was immense. So it may have taken them a lot of years to get where they got to, but actually a large part of that came back from that lack of clarity. So I would hope that if anybody listening and watching this, it inspires you to really think about your goal. And just to put one final set of numbers on there to say why it's so important. There was a study, I think it was done by Harvard. And in this study of 100 people, they'd asked them who has a goal. And of that 100 people, only 13% had a goal, had clarity on what it was that they were doing. And then of that 13%, only 3% had it written down. And a start of a plan. Even if it was a terrible, terrible plan, they'd at least given some thought to what might be the actions that they either needed to evaluate, or the research that they needed to do, or the questions that they needed to ask, but they had a something. And when they came back a year later to look at the impact, the 3% outperformed the 13% tenfold. And that group outperformed the people without a goal a further tenfold, which just shows how important it is for us to really take time, take pause, and get real clarity on our goal. And so for me, I hope that this has been interesting. It struck me that actually it was one of the things that I needed to find the time to do, which was to take time and focus on the goal. And therefore I thought I'd share that with you guys listening, so that you can hopefully take some time to pause and reflect as well. And we would love if you would share with us in the comments as we move forward how you've got on with your goal. Are you heading in the direction that you want to head? Have you gained all of the insight about where it is you want to be? And are you excited about getting there? Because that for me is what it's all about, that being able to pull all of that together. And if you want some help with that, if you're getting stuck, by all means reach out. As you can see, that's my LinkedIn. So you can always get me there. You can message me, or you can find out more about what we're doing on the show or on my platform, which is AuthenticAchievements.com. But I really do encourage you to take a moment and think and really gain that clarity. Give yourself permission to take the time to gain clarity on where you want to go and then start to take action towards it. It might be that you've got a goal to host your own show, to produce your own show, in which case you should come over to USA Global TV and Radio, have a look at usaglobaltv.com and see the packages there, talk to Dr. Jacqueline. I promise you, you'll love it. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I absolutely love it. I've got to meet some amazing people. And sometimes when I look at some of the things that I have been given the opportunity to do, like this show, like my TEDx, like my book, I sometimes have to pinch myself and go, how did I get to do all of those things? But when I really am honest with myself, they were things that I had written down as goals. They were things that I said I would love to do. I had it on I call it my bucket list as opposed to my goal list. My bucket list of things to do before I was 50 was to have written a book, done a TEDx, and have a TV show. And I'm super grateful I got to do all of them. And that for me is the power of goal setting. So I really hope that people have found this improv session helpful. It has given them some pause to reflect and some motivation to make sure that you're spending the end of this year really focused, whether that's on yourself, on your business, or on your team, on exactly where you want to go so that we end the year on a high. And I hope that if you need any help, you'll reach out and get in touch. And we're at the end. So for all of you listening and watching, thank you so much for giving us your time. We hope that you found the show to offer some insight and hopefully some inspiration in setting your goal and ending your year on a high. And until next time, we look forward to seeing you back here on USA Global TV and Radio, where we can share more insight and more inspiring stories of other people's lived experience to help you to overcome whatever challenge you're facing or to succeed in whatever goal you're aiming for. So until next time, thank you for watching and take care.
We face daily cyber risks, spending over 7 hours of screen time, including 4.5 hours on mobile phones. This convenience comes with significant dangers, with cybercrime costs predicted to exceed $10.5 trillion by 2025. In 2023 alone, seniors lost over $3.4 billion to cybercrime. Our goal is to make social engineering concepts of cybersecurity easier to understand. We work with business teams, senior living facilities, investment companies, and educational institutions, both individually and in groups. We offer real-life examples to help you recognize and prevent attacks, with sessions available both in person, in selected regions, and remotely. Schedule your training session, or to learn more, contact us today. Call us at 847-845-9360. Email us at info@cybersecurityeasy.com. Protect your team and family with cybersecurityeasy.com.
My name is Dr. Felix Kravitz, and I am the founder of Cybersecurityeasy.com, LLC. We live in a world full of vulnerabilities and cyber risks. We spend almost 4.5 hours a day on our mobile phones. It's over 7 hours of screen time daily when including computer use. We often forget that this convenience comes with risks. Published data predicts that the cost of cybercrime will exceed $10.5 trillion in 2025. These numbers encompass not only businesses, but also each one of us, including our children and our parents. In 2023, the FBI reported over $3.4 billion lost by seniors aged 60 and older. Cybersecurityeasy.com LLC's initiative is to massively support the community by providing cyber safety coaching and improving social engineering awareness. Our goal is to make social engineering concepts of cybersecurity easier to understand. We work with business teams, seniors, and educational institutions, both individually and in groups. We cover various topics from phone phishing attacks to AI-generated voice cloning, robocalls, password protection, and more using life examples. Talk to us today. Call us at 847-845-9360 or email us at info@cybersecurity-easy.com.
Hello everyone, I'm Simon MacDonald. I live in the West Highlands of Scotland, a very beautiful part of the world. Seems a long way from the USA Global TV station. But remember, USA Global TV is worldwide. It's a fantastic platform. And every Wednesday, I come along here as part of the show of the United Kingdom, News and Culture. And it's just like a family reunion each time. It's one of these amazing stations that has such a beautiful, friendly, and intelligent atmosphere as well. And we reach out to an audience in the most unimaginable places. And I came here, I don't know, must be over a year ago now. I was introduced by Dr. Philip Chan, and I met Ian Plum-Turner and Helena Chard, who are co-presenters on the show. And then Diane Floyd-Bem came along as well. And I mean, the five of us, Dr. Jacqueline, of course, who is our host and our mentor, has just made this show work so well. Tremendous people, lovely time we have, and we impart a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. Nothing's rehearsed. It's all done off the cuff, and it all just gels. And we get great feedback from people coming back and saying how they're enjoying the show. It's lovely to hear. It's lovely to get that interaction from outside as well. And we're all listeners, and some of us are elevated listeners as well. So we enjoy every second of it, and we hope you do too.